Good evening, Razorback fans. Welcome to another episode of Hog Talk Podcast, live from the Sterling Soap and Roastery Studios, part of the Believe in Buzz Radio Network, where you can hear us on 106.7 in Central Arkansas. All live shows are presented to you by Arkansas Brewing Company in downtown Ozark. I am Porter Hayes, and alongside me, as always, is Adam Hall. And we're also brought to you by Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From preseason NFL, college kicking off, BetOnline has every stat, matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. You think you know your stuff? Get in on our winner-take-all 300,000 NFL Survivor pool coming this season. When the game's over, head on over to online casino, get on the game of blackjack, poker, or unwind in one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today. Use promo code BLEAV. Get on the action. Bet online. The game starts here, and the wait is finally over. We've had NFL preseason scrimmages. We've got fall camp, but college football is here. We are here this week, starting this weekend. A couple of, I guess, decent games, but nevertheless, football's back. Everybody can rejoice. We don't have a little hand clapping button to sound off, but it's one of those things that it's here, and I know we're excited about it. But are you going to be watching any of the games just because football's back?
Yes, and I'm not sure if this is going to come through everywhere, but let's test this.
There we go. I hear that.
Okay, so I do have an applause button. Yeah, I mean, it's like I've tried watching a little bit of the NFL preseason. I will say it's hard for me to get into. I'll keep track of what, Hogs are playing in the preseason, which guys are trying to make teams. But preseason's really hard to watch in the NFL. Watching Baltimore lose their first two preseason games when I think they hadn't lost preseason in the past 4, 5, 6 seasons. They haven't lost a preseason game, so it was a little bit weird. But it's one of those I feel like you could only watch the third and fourth string guys. You can only watch them only so much.
Well, yeah, and Caleb Williams is the truth against third stringers. I mean, everybody looks at one play, but then you look at his passer rating; it was like 67. Mm-hmm. Like. He might surprise us all, but it is hilarious when he breaks a tackle, runs 5 yards into the end zone, and everybody's like, he's the greatest quarterback ever. We get that every preseason.
So I don't know what is it called? Is it week 0 or whatever?
Yeah, week 0 today with college football. Florida State, Georgia Tech, really, they kick it off in Dublin. So I mean that's pretty cool to start your season off in Dublin, Ireland.
Yeah, and that'll be something that unless it's at some random time of day that I'm not going to wake or watch a 2 a.m. game or whatever time it comes on over here. I'll keep track of what's going on. I can't say that I'll sit and watch a full game, but I'll definitely be tuned in at various points, seeing what's going on.
Well, it's either that. Drum roll, please. When we talk about this, I mean, you're talking about this rivals the October 12th lineup. Totally joking, but Montana State, New Mexico, SMU, Nevada, Delaware State, and Hawaii. Let's see who they got. Yeah, Florida State, Georgia Tech is the marquee one. Montana State, New Mexico, SMU, Nevada, Delaware State, Hawaii. And I'll tell you what. Delaware State, Hawaii kicks off at 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock at night. So they said Pac-12 after dark's dead, but I guess you can say, hey, look, if you really want to stay up that late and week 0 action, you got to
watch the Rainbow Warriors until 2 a.m. Go for it. But
I'm not going to lie. Listen, we joke.
I mean, that SMU Nevada game.
Yeah.
Might be entertaining.
Yeah.
See where Rhett Lashley, what they can do.
Yeah, but I don't know. And everybody's making a big deal about the Florida State, Georgia Tech. I just see but again, beggars can't be choosers, but I do have to announce like first world problems. I don't know if you've seen my personal Facebook post the other day. But after 9 years of working for DirecTV and getting their services post employment, I do have to pay for TV. And
It's not cheap.
I know that's tough. That's tough to complain about, but I've put the fillers out. Everybody's rooting for YouTube TV, so I'm going to go that route, see what that's like. But yeah, it sucks when they give you that email that they are going to cut your services off September 12th. So
Yeah, I know. I switched from DirecTV to that DirecTV Stream. It was slightly cheaper, and plus side is when a wind blows too hard or it rains, I don't lose signal.
Yeah.
It's just when there's power surge and your router has to reboot that can't watch anything. But I stream. I really don't watch live TV unless it's sports, Big Brother, or wrestling.
Yeah. And not to call him out, I don't know if he might get mad at us for this, but our guest coming on at 7 was talking about time constraints because of his shows that he promised to watch with his girl, Love Island. But I can't hate on that because I do the same thing. You get roped in these shows, the housewife shows, and your wife's like, I hate drama, but you want to watch drama shows, and I'm right there. So if you don't have college football, hey, I got housewives to go on. But yeah, that was another good thing about the Stream Box, because you could access your apps from the same device. So, but again, woe is me when it comes to that. But getting into Sam Pittman, Little Rock Touchdown Club, look, that's an entertainment thing. Everybody's breaking it apart or saying this and that, but he's there to entertain. He's there to hype. He's there to get people. And he said it. Look, he don't want people being negative, this and that. This is a new season. Even, brought out the tie that he said he wore last year. Look, that is Sam. And even though things are not looking good from last season, he did look comfortable, So hopefully moving in this year, and with him speaking at the Little Rock Touchdown Club, they haven't really practiced much since that awful practice. So really looking into this week to see how things play out.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, I didn't put a whole lot of stock in the bad scrimmage or whatever it was to end the week, to end fall camp. It's one of those things that late this week and half of next week or whatever, leading up to the Thursday game, that's what you need to worry about. Obviously you take the issues that you had at the last scrimmage and move forward. Hope they don't, come back. But, fall camp's over. Put it behind you. Get ready for UAPB so you can have your dress rehearsal. Tighten up the things you need to tighten up and get ready for Oklahoma State. And, it's one of those things with this UAPB game. I know we talked last week and, you want to be up or win by 30 plus. I'm looking at this like I want to cover the spread. I want them to win by 50 plus. Do I think it'll happen? Maybe not. But at the same time, we also have a different offensive coordinator at the helm. So hopefully, we see things that obviously we didn't see last season. And I think, if your O-line is blocking and you have a bit more of an offensive guru calling the plays, I think we're going to see a lot different product than we saw last season.
Execution. Execution. Look, I'm not saying win the game by 50. You should, but if they win this game handily and it's 42-3 or whatever, 49-10, and they execute, they don't have the problems with the offsides or they're not making bad throws. And I know you're going to have especially playing in War Memorial Stadium, because look, it's a smaller atmosphere and the crowd's going to be rocking. So even if it is a home game, those first game jitters and playing in a smaller stadium than Fayetteville, you that could still kind of, in a way, you're going to have some counts and plays, but like we talked about last week, you can't have the consistent offsides or interferences and stuff like that, or the dumb ones. Even if it is UAPB, those third down screw up plays where you hit the quarterback late or hit them out of bounds, those boneheaded plays that could cost you a first down. You even if it is an opponent like you can't have those because that's dress rehearsal for next week. That's my main point. See execution and be able to run the ball. That's those are the two musts for me.
Mm-hmm. And I want to see, there's a lot of questions surrounding special teams. I want to see if we have a punter, and a lot of this is going to be field position. But you want to see a punter that can flip the field. Let's see the hang time. Let's see if we're able to pin them back. I don't have any necessarily doubts on kickoffs. Of course, I don't think they've said I think that Matt Shipley is going to be the kicker. But are we going to see Calvo Russo return to being the kickoff specialist like he was before he went to Wisconsin? But he was in the top high, top the NCAA in touchbacks when he was at Arkansas before he went to Wisconsin. So I don't think there's going to be any issues in the touchback realm. At least they haven't changed the rules of kickoffs like the NFL has. But special teams is something that I'm going to be looking at. And I'm still waiting to see if we can get a punt return, kick return game like we've had in years past. Because that's one thing I think, honestly, past decade plus, we've been missing.
Yeah. And the fact you got guys with quality. I mean, Tesla and Zatania, you got guys that are capable. But where do you, again, this isn't like the Derek McFadden, Felix Jones days where you stick your two best players back there to do punt return and kick return. So you're really trading it off. But yet, if you can, you're talking about flipping the field on punting. If you can flip the field on punt return and get your guy to get there and get you a good 20, 30 yard return, put you on the opposite side in their territory, that could be just as beneficial as you punting the ball 50, 60 yards. So definitely going to be interested to see who they put back there for that. But like you said with the kicker, I mean, you always see the expectations when you have a kicker like Cam Little, the expectations and that, to fill those shoes, to see what a true Cam Little NFL style kicker brings to the table. That right there, you talking about 4-8 season, but even though they couldn't execute on the offensive side of the ball, special teams really came through and really got the field positioning, we're punting it. And so that's where that could come into play. And that's why when, the punter that left, the man, his name's slipping my mind, the one that left at the transfer portal and left out.
Max Fletcher.
Yes, Max Fletcher. I mean, he was, I want to really kind of compare him to Hudson Clark. Like he had stretches where everybody praised him. He was great, but man, he shanked a punt and they were just right back on him. So he did make a difference when he could connect, but he just wasn't consistent enough. Same thing with Hudson Clark. I know we've talked about ad nauseum about him being out of position, but there was times where he did get burnt. We can't just blame everything on him being out of position or not playing in a different position. So being consistent, and I know Scott Fountain had a lot of heat put on him. There's a lot of coaches that, all right, you got a new OC, T Wheels in his second year. Let's see what happens with this. And it's all about Coach Pittman. Him being the head coach, he's going to get a lot of heat. And look, I hate to say it, but it's not fair in a sense because you have a lot of talent, but they're just waiting on this until they prove them. And I'm not saying you're this type of fan, but it's like you've said, like, I want them to prove to me. But on the other side of it, it's like they want them to prove, but yet as soon as they lose like one game, see, I told you, you got to give them some grace when it comes to this season because you are coming off of a 4-8 year. We've talked about the 2-6. You can't go 2-6 down the fit stretch, but be competitive in some of these games. Don't get blown out by Missouri and Auburn.
Yeah, and back on just one last thing on the special teams, thinking about return, listening to Coach Fountain last week, the question is who's it going to be in the return, whether it's kick return, punt return. He said flat out that nothing's given that, he wasn't going to come out and say that Satania was going to be on kick returns. And I totally get it. You've got a guy that is going to be one of your go-tos in this offense. And you just don't see any more of that star wide receiver, star running back, being your returner. One thing I thought was interesting was he said Monty Harrison had approached him, 29-year-old freshman, and he wanted to return punts. And Fountain looked at him and said, well, you're a little big for that. I mean, he's 6'3", 230.
Yeah.
And Harrison was basically looked at him and said, I played center field in the major leagues. Yeah. I can track a ball. And just like kind of hearing that quote, I'm just like, why not try it out? And apparently he's been practicing punt returns since their conversation. But I'm just thinking, I mean, he's kind of onto something, and he's going to be difficult to bring down. If you're out there playing center field in major leagues, you can move. So, it's one of those things I'd be curious to see how that'll play out.
Another thing is too, I mean, where's his headspace coming? And this is because it's going to come off like I'm knocking him, but it is seriously not. I just want to know where his headspace is. He really trying to really go pro with this, really come in and make a difference? Or is this like, dude, this is my last chance. I want to live out my dream. But so he's trying to help the team out as much as possible and make an impact. Yes, he would probably love to make anybody and make the NFL, but it goes about that aspect of him doing the punt return right there. That's just leadership.
Mm-hmm.
You've been in the MLB tracking down center field, and we know how quick, fast you have to be able to go. So being able to track down the ball, but him also, look, punt return is not as easy as kickoff return, because you have to catch the ball and then immediately fast twitch and find a way to get some space and get some positive yards.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be really cool, to see how that plays out. And I think that's really big of him to step up. And again, somebody you think that's 29, you're like, okay, but him transitioning that leadership role and stepping up and saying he could just come in, I'm going to do some wide receiver stuff, try to go pro at it, but not really have an impact.
Mm-hmm.
Have that kind of leadership impact is big.
Oh, and even though he's, like we said, 29-year-old freshman, playing professional baseball and whatnot, and seeing, I mean, he could barely visit or, possibly be looking at, maybe he saw an opportunity. He saw that maybe there were some issues in punt return, and he thought, I can do this. I can help out. Give me a shot. Especially right now, you're just in fall camp. It's not like it's the middle of the season. But I know Coach Fountain had mentioned, Satania not being a sure thing. Jalen Braxton was one he had out there who has been doing a good job in the camps from what we said. I think he did a little bit last season. Jordan Anthony. So I think there's about 4 to 5 guys that are on the list, but then we'll see come season time, because that one muffed punt or one fumble could change that quickly for any of these guys.
Yeah, and look, I know that you've played center field, you've tracked down some balls, but the angle and how these things come at you are a lot different than tracking a ball with gloves, not a baseball glove. So yeah, there is a learning curve, but I'm sure him being able to do that at a pro level. I mean, again, let's look at the facts. Like, this is a guy who played professional major league ball. I'm not saying that he's going to be an all-American punt returner, but that transition of center fielder and doing punt return, I don't think it's going to be as bad. So could be a big help. So we'll just see how it goes.
And I think it's one of those things that, while you're buttoning things up game 1 against UAPB, I mean, if you've got a couple guys like that you're looking at, show me something in the return game, do it in a game like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the, just make sure you secure the ball, but then let's see what you got. But like Logan said, blocking is key on a lot of those too, because we've seen in years past that the opposition gets to us way too quickly.
Especially on punt. Like, you talk about being able to block on the run, blocking on a punt return is just as key because of the reaction time. I mean, most time when you see a guy catching the punt, he's got maybe a second, maybe, to react and shift and go. So that's not something we haven't really touched on. That was a good point, but that could really be a game changer. And all it takes is one, like a game where things are on the line. Look how many times you go back to the Florida game where Reggie Fish had the game. You muff a punt. Look what it did to the whole trajectory of that game. So you being able to turn that around to a positive, which it did against, I know people, it's going to bring back old wounds, but Missouri State. Look what a punt return did to that game and being able to score. So, yeah, this first game, I really think with the hype, there's a chip on this team's shoulder. There is embrace the hog. There is, we don't want anything negative. Believe in our team. So this is going to be the season that, all right, you want us to believe in, you want us to buy in, which from what I've heard on the inside, there's a lot of people who have bought in. There's a lot of players that they've stuck around. They haven't left. And I know you have the people, they'll say, well, that's because they're a 4-8 team. They couldn't go any. There's a lot of things that go back to 21. How many people on that team that won 9 games are honestly having an impact on an NFL roster this season? How many people off of that team are doing much in the NFL right now? But
couldn't tell you
exactly. And this is no knock, but it shows you what a team can do when they buy in. You've got some NFL talent guys, Bumper Pool, Grant Morgan, but did it transition to the NFL? So with that being said, that should show you some promise because you had a lot of people that they had a lot more heart than like an NFL talent. And things can happen. And we're going to wrap up on that, next week. We're going to put together our wins, losses. We're really going to unveil our predictions for this season next Monday before we have Courtney Mims on. But to see where we're at headed into this season, I think that's a big key that we'll talk with Andrew Ellis about is who's going to be some of those surprise guys. What has he seen from fall camp that can really get people on board from what we've heard from the coaches and what little that the media has been able to see leading up to the season?
It's almost here. And, like I said, they're predictions. I know I've been fairly vocal about mine, but we can go more in depth with it next week because it's one of those things that I'm not being like, I will be perfectly happy if I'm wrong. No issues about that whatsoever. And again, mine come from just what we've seen the last couple of seasons.
And that's where I'm the other way on that. I'm not sitting here saying they're going to win 9-10 games, but I'm just going off of what people that have been able to watch the little bit of the practice. They were at SEC Media Days. They've seen kind of the different poise of Pittman, what they've seen out of some of these players, and the fact that just things that were pointed out. You look at the losses, but look how many were 1 point or 1 score games. Look at the red zone woes they did have. So you give a offensive guru to help the side of the ball that needs it the most in the offense. It kind of changes a couple of those losses into wins. And you're playing some teams that have lost more talent than you have. And there's new coaches, and always happens in the SEC with coaching changes. And I think this is the year they really take advantage of that.
I'm ready for it.
Well, we're going to go to break. After the break, we're going to bring on Andrew Ellis of Inside Arkansas to give us a recap of what he's seen at fall, his new endeavor with Inside Arkansas, and really talk about some of those surprise players that not a lot of people is talking about that would be a household name come the end of the season. And we'll catch you after the break. Searching for premium brewery products that will take your daily routine to the next level? Look no further than Sterling Soap Company. Our handmade soaps, aftershaves, and balms are made with only the finest ingredients that give you the ultimate grooming experience. With a variety of scents to choose from, there's something for everyone.
Plus, our products are crafted in small batches to ensure the highest level of quality. So why wait? Visit www.sterlingsoap.com or visit our retail store at 16 West Walnut Street in Paris, Arkansas. Shop our collection and discover the difference for yourself. Upgrade your grooming routine with Sterling Soap Company. Are you looking for a place to grab a cold drink and some delicious food? Look no further than Arkansas Brewing Company. Located at 201 South 1st Street in beautiful downtown Ozark, our establishment offers a wide selection of craft beers and tasty eats. But what sets us apart is our welcoming atmosphere and friendly staff. At Arkansas Brewing Company, you'll always feel like part of the family. So visit Destiny and Christopher Brockett and staff today and see for yourself what makes us the go-to spot for locals and visitors alike. Arkansas Brewing Company, come for the drinks and stay for the friends. Attention DIYers and home improvement enthusiasts. Are you searching for the right tools and supplies to tackle your next project? Look no further than Mentor's Hardware Store. With locations in Ozark, Alma, and Clarksville, our vast selection of hardware and building materials is sure to have everything you need. Whether you're fixing a leaky faucet or building a new deck, plus our knowledgeable staff is always on hand to offer expert advice and guidance. And with our competitive prices and convenient online ordering, Mentor's Hardware Store is your one-stop shop for all your DIY needs. Visit us today and let's build something amazing together.
Are you looking to take your career to the next level? Look no further than ATU Ozark Campus. As a 2-year satellite campus of Arkansas Tech University, we're dedicated to a quality workforce education, industry partnerships for in-demand jobs, and tailored paths for success. Our programs are led by industry professionals. Whether it's a certificate or you're aiming for a graduate degree, ATU Ozark has you covered. Visit our website at www.atu.edu/Ozark or contact us at 479-667-2117. Your future begins here. Welcome to Ozark Area Chamber of Commerce, where our mission is simple: encourage, promote, and aid an enduring environment of shared economic opportunity and civic development for the Ozark, Arkansas area. Whether you're a local business owner or a resident, we've got something for you. Shop our unique local businesses, explore the beauty of Ozark, and savor local flavors and find cozy accommodations. Join us in building a stronger community, and to learn more, contact us at 479-667-2525. Remember, together we thrive. And welcome back to Hog Talk Podcast. And we head to the Meadows Lumber Hotline, bring in Andrew Ellis of Insight Arkansas. And Andrew, I know you're just excited as we are that football is finally here. I know it's been an eventful off season for you. So appreciate you coming on tonight. Mute.
I was trying to be quiet, but when I was in the background, when I was waiting, I was trying not to.
Oh, you're all right.
But yeah. So no, it's been exciting, man. But I'm definitely looking forward to there being actual things to talk about and not just variables of like, oh yeah, this guy could be good, or this guy could not be good, or just kind of trying to guess the game. It'll be nice to actually have a real actual game to watch and draw opinions from, and kind of reassess where we're at, because I feel like right now we're all kind of trying to do our own guessing game and trying to just put it together and be like, is this going to work with the D line? Is this going to work with the line? Like, we can stop the guessing here in a couple weeks now.
And I was talking to Adam about this brutal lineup that kind of, I mean, it rivals October 12th. I mean, between Florida State, Georgia Tech, but then you've got Nevada, SMU, you've got Montana State, New Mexico, Hawaii, Delaware State. How does that stack up? Like, I asked Adam, are you going to be watching football just because it's on? And especially with the Hawaii game starting at 11 p.m. I mean, it's back, but man, they kind of didn't do anybody any favors with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it stacks up pretty well with a lot of the week zeros that are like, we're all excited and we get in front of our TVs and then we're like, all right, Northwestern and Illinois, it's going to be 13-10. And yeah, there's always like some team that's playing somebody that, it's going to beat them 59-0, something like that. But yeah, Hawaii has always been a fun week zero team. Did Vanderbilt play Hawaii week zero a couple years ago?
Yes.
Did I make that up?
Yeah. No, they did.
Okay, I feel like I remember betting on Vanderbilt and like being sold. I was like, you know what, this coach they got, I'm telling you, man, watch out for him. I forgot his name by now. What's that?
What betting source did you use on it?
Well, at that point in time, I have no idea what I would have used, what I would have been using. I must have been.
Yeah.
I think I was still living in Louisiana at that point. I have no idea, but I was. I don't know. That wasn't too long ago. So no, I probably was in Arkansas, but who knows?
Well, there's a lot of hype coming into the season, and I know you've followed closely with the team, kind of SEC media days, and coming into this off season. Where is your, I guess, hype level 1 to 10? But yet, what is your buy-in on Bobby Petrino and just what him and T. Will has been able to do? Getting some, I mean, look at the recruiting and getting his players to buy in. Where do you see this team right now?
Well, right now we're in that time of year where, again, kind of everybody feels pretty good about what they have going on. There's very few teams in the SEC that are going into this fall being like, I don't know if it's gonna work, So I think right now it's kind of easy to be optimistic, and you're around the team, and they certainly feel like they're going to be improved. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Again, that doesn't mean much because everyone kind of feels they're going to be good, but I think there were certain points last year where if you had polled the team, I don't know if they would have been telling you, yeah, we're all rowing in the right direction. Like we're all on the same page here. And so at the very least, it feels like a fresh start. It feels like something new. And I feel like for the defense, it's not like, like you mentioned, it's not like they have to start from scratch or anything. It was an improved unit a year ago. So with Travis Williams, you feel like he's going to get the benefit of the doubt. I'm excited to see how that group looks. I mean, I'll tell you, in the spring, I had questions defensively. And I'm not like, full on, like this is going to be an elite group or anything, but I feel like they did a really good job answering some of those questions in June, July, when it's really hard to do. It's not easy when it's June and you realize you probably need an extra linebacker to go find 2 guys that'll realistically contribute for you. And that's what they did with Worth and Switzer. And so I'm impressed with this coaching staff, everything they're saying, everything, just the vibe around them. And obviously with Petrino, it's not too hard to buy into the track record of what he's done at Arkansas and just with offenses in general. So, I'm optimistic that Arkansas is going to be an improved team from last year. Not saying much, but I can definitively say that it just might not necessarily translate. I'm not saying it's going to be a complete turnaround. Who knows what that equates to wins and losses wise, but I have no doubt that Arkansas is a better team than they were a year ago.
I know, the offensive line has obviously been a hot topic for most fans, most critical too. How do you see things like this year or this season leading up to versus last year, going from Cody Kennedy to Coach Mateos and Sam Pittman seeming to be more involved at the practice level than he has been in the past?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it definitely feels night and day. And I don't want to say night and day as in like, oh, they were bad and now they're going to be great. I just mean vibe-wise. Cody Kennedy and Eric Mateos each have had success at the D1 level. I'm not trying to knock either guy. They're just very different personalities. And I think the room kind of responds differently. And the relationship with Pittman is frankly different, even though they're both guys that have been under Pittman and kind of do things his way with their own spin on it. I feel like Mateos and Pittman have a very unique relationship. It's a very different one. And I think he liked Kennedy a lot too. And he was around that group a lot. But I remember last year during camp, Curtis and I got really chewed out by the message board over at Hog Sports because we were like, yeah, the offensive line, man, it just was a weird vibe at practice today. We didn't think that, like there was a player talking back to Coach Kennedy and like there was a little bit like tense there. And we wrote about that multiple times and people really didn't like it. And I'm not saying we were prophets that knew that this whole thing was going to blow up, but I definitely was not going into last season being like, oh yeah, everything's great over there. What's funny is Josh Braun turned out to be the best one. We thought he sucked. Honestly, like I was like, I don't think this guy's going to be that great either. But talent-wise, I think they've upgraded a little bit. I don't think they needed a complete talent overhaul, but I think they definitely needed a cohesion overhaul, which I think they got. I think that group is a lot closer now. I think Pittman obviously, had his fingerprints on it. I think he had his fingerprints on there a little bit last year, but I think he feels better about that. I feel like he took it personally what happened last year, and so I definitely like that group. I'd really appreciate it a little bit more if Patrick Kudus would get back out there, but they really like a Marion Harris. So for the time being, I don't feel like it's going to be a huge issue, but fall camp has definitely made me a little bit concerned just because with Kudus' exit, you've been hearing a lot of, we're moving guys around and, we might play 8 guys, which like, when's the last time a really good offensive line was like hitting guys mid-game? You know what I mean? It doesn't really happen. And that's not to say I don't actually buy that they're going to do that. I just felt like when you start hearing stuff like that, it's kind of like, wait, what? And so, I think in the spring, I was very optimistic on the O-line. I was like, these dudes are awesome. Like they love each other and, they're dominating in practice every day. It seems like the defense has closed that gap throughout the offseason, which is really not what you typically see. But I feel like there's a little bit more uncertainty with the offensive line. But I think back to last year, and I'm like, they're definitely going to be better than that. Like, I don't have any doubt about that. It's just a matter of, are they going to be an actual top half of the SEC O-line? We'll see.
And I kind of posed the question a couple days ago on the defensive side when they had that horrid practice. And look, you've got a guy in T-Will who wants to make a statement. You've got a guy like Landon Jackson who wants to make a statement in his career. So where do you draw the line on, okay, they had a really bad offensive game, or this defense is on point to make a statement, and you're not used to hearing – all you hear about is offense. Offense was really good, but to really come out and embrace that the defense had a great day, could that be a positive on just how serious that T-Will and having a guy like Landon Jackson be? Look, we missed a true leader last year on both sides. You didn't have anybody that this team could really lean on. Now you have a guy like Landon Jackson, T-Will. How big of a difference could that make in some of these games those swing games that Arkansas had last year?
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough when you're trying to like hear what they're saying about practices and trying to draw your own conclusions, do the math of like, all right, if this group is winning here, then that means this. But I think with this offseason, what's been encouraging is that it hasn't been a consistent one group dominating the other, because we've heard plenty of those offensive highlights. We see them tweeted out every day. In the spring. I know there was, the spring game alone, but also in spring practice, the offense had plenty of moments. And so I feel like the defense having some of these moments like you're talking about the other day, I'm assuming the 8 picks is what you're referencing there. Yeah, I mean, that's quite the statement. And, this defense was opportunistic last year. And so I think even if it's not a group that's going to be holding teams under 200 yards and stuff like that, they're going to be opportunistic. They're going to force turnovers. They're going to make things happen. And so, yeah, I feel like it's seeing some of that happen. I think it's also worth noting that the offense had a couple receivers out. And I know Patrick Cruz obviously hasn't been practicing much at all. And so you kind of expect it, but for them to go out there and do it, I think that makes sense. And so, yeah, I think both groups have actually made each other better. Where I think back to this time last year, we were all convinced Arkansas had this like dominant defensive line, because every day in practice it was like, oh yeah, we can't block Trajan Jeffcoat, we can't block. So it just kept being a thing. And then it turned out defensive line was pretty good, but really there was a big issue there on the offensive line. It hasn't been like that. Like, we've gotten our fair share of this group looks good, this group looks good, this guy wins that. Like, I feel like it's been pretty back and forth for the most part.
Looking back, or I guess from last segment, I referenced something from Coach Fountain said last week, and it was when he brought up the conversation between him and Monty Harrison, returning punts. How realistic do you think that something like that, or that we might see in a game situation?
The only reason I don't buy Monty Harrison as the punt returner is just because that would mean Isaiah Satania is not the punt returner. And so I'm just like, I feel like that's probably not going to happen. But kick return, I feel like is pretty wide open. And I think Satania is also a guy who's going to get used a lot on offense. And so I could see them wanting to scale back his usage on punt returns and stuff like that. And Monty Harrison, you think punt return, you think the shifty guys, and he's 230, but he played center field, obviously. He can drive down a ball. Like, I get all that. And like, he just seems to have a little bit of a knack he's just such a good athlete. I think he's just one of those guys you could put him anywhere and he could probably play 2 guard and figure it out pretty well. But yeah, who knows about punt return, but kick return, I think it's wide open. Him and Jordan Anthony will definitely be in that mix.
And going back to, what we were talking about, feeling a different vibe. I had referenced the 21 season and how many of those guys that were on that 21 year that are not, none of those guys are really making a huge impact at the next level. Showing that what they can do with that talent, if they're bought in, where does that give you that optimism of, not saying they're going to go win 9-10 games, but that optimism knowing what this could be when you have, if your 3 guys at the coaching level are bought in, they're on the same page, you're having players that are bought in. Where does that throw you on that optimism level of they might not start out strong, but they could end up being something special?
No, yeah. I think back to that year. I think that's a great point, because I think back, I believe I predicted them to go 6-6 that year. I think that was my first year, like, really covering the team on the beat. I think I said 6-6. And that year's an example of just how much you can accomplish when you do have everyone on the same page. Because like you mentioned, it's not like it was, Traylon Smith started the year as the number 1 running back, and they turned out to have like 3 or 4 backs that might be better than him. But yeah, it's like you look back on that defense and a lot of the best players were younger. Like, there's a lot of things. You got some transfers, John Ridgeway, who like is playing in the NFL now and like is a stud. But it wasn't like we went into that year and he was second team All SEC, like known as a guy. And so yeah, I think back to that team, and I mean KJ had a great year at quarterback, very unproven. I would say Taylor Green, you could argue, is more proven at this stage in his career than KJ was going into that year. Traylon Burks is Traylon Burks, and so we knew that was going to be the thing. But I mean, you can make a real argument this year's receiving core is as deep, if not deeper than that one, and has more to it overall. And so yeah, I mean, you could make that case. I think when I think back to that year, though, just the margin for error is so thin in this league where that like a lot kind of had to line up for that team to go 9-4, which frankly, that's going to be the case for all these teams in the SEC. You're going to have to beat really good teams for that to happen. But I mean, it's not like, the next year they went 7-6. It wasn't like a vastly different team. The margin for error in this league, when you get into these one score games, it really matters. Just how bought in you are you on the same page? Do all of you like each other? Those are things that Arkansas just couldn't say they had going for them last year. And so I think there's a chance. I mean, it's, like I said, it's week 1. So everyone kind of feels that way right now, but yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. But I think with this team, they have to get off to a good start. Like you said, I mean, that year they start 4-0 going into that Georgia game. If this team started 4-0, man, I mean, there would be a lot of excitement around Fayetteville. I mean, would that be going into the A&M game? You'd be going to Arlington 4-0, probably ranked in the top 15 to 20. Yeah, that would be something.
And I think, 2 games really stick out in this season as we're talking about things falling in the right place. You get Texas and LSU at home. Those are 2 teams that, even though they're better than you on paper, you always play them very well. Look, 7-3 last year. And then when you played, we all know what happened last time they played Texas. Talk about that being some of those chips. And you're talking about that A&M game. I mean, having what the troubles that they've had. How can Arkansas really take advantage of the schedule? Yes, there's better teams, better talent, but those games you always play coast. How can you really see some of those games and how they play them help them? Again, when we're talking about flipping the schedule, going from 4 to 8 to 8-4, what would be key in some of those games?
Well, you think back to last year, and I mean, you're talking about a 4-8 team, but they played some of their best games of the year on the road. It's just a weird thing that happened that way. I mean, you're talking about Florida, they almost beat Alabama on the road. LSU, they played them pretty close. And so if you're getting that kind of effort on the road from this Arkansas team, which I think is a better team overall, you're looking at Mississippi State game, winnable. Auburn, we'll see how improved they are. I have no idea. I haven't looked at one Auburn practice report. I'm assuming they'll be better, but that's a game Arkansas is probably not going to be favored in. But I mean, if we're talking about the same effort you got on the road last year, that seems pretty winnable. I mean, Arlington is always completely up in the air. And so, yeah, I mean, Missouri at the end of the year too, like some of your most quote unquote winnable games, and I know those fan bases will take offense to me saying that, are on the road. And so, if you're really playing well on the road and making those, I mean, the Mississippi State game is one Arkansas kind of like has to have. I mean, you can throw Oklahoma State in here out of the league. I mean, that's another very pivotal road game, but a winnable one. Yeah, it kind of gives you that just extra juice at home, which, when you look at the schedule and the way it lines up, you can really start talking yourself into a lot of stuff here, man. And, most years also you have a Georgia or Alabama or like LSU is really good, like a team that you just kind of, the whole fan base kind of agrees, all right, hey, we're not getting that one. Like, that's just how it is. There's not really games like me personally. Ole Miss and Texas are on that list where I'm just like, I'm really high on both of those squads, especially Ole Miss. I'm secretly a Lane Kiffin guy. I think Ole Miss is about to be disgusting, like playoff good. And so I think I would just kind of, I'm willing to chalk that one up as a loss, but there's really not 2-3 games where you're like, all right, Arkansas can't win that one. Like we talked about, all these games are at home. LSU, Tennessee, those are 2 massive home games and 2 teams that we really don't know. I mean, obviously they've been good the last few years and you'd expect, both of them good coaches to rebuild to some extent and probably be favored in those games. But like, if LSU went 7-5, I wouldn't be stunned. If Tennessee kind of took a little bit of a step back with a young quarterback, I wouldn't be stunned. And so, that 2021 season, it just felt like every game that came on the schedule that year, by the time it got there, you're like, Hawks could win this one. Like that A&M game preseason, I doubt most of us were like, yeah, they'll win that. Then when it comes and they have a backup quarterback and you're like, they'll probably get this one. And so you just never know how it's going to play out. And so it's exciting to watch all this unfold because everything we're saying now about which games Arkansas might or might not win, in 2 weeks, we might be like, well, they're not winning at Auburn. That team looks disgusting. That's just how it's going to work out. And so, man, I just can't wait for it to start. All these variables to just be put to bed. We don't have to start wondering anymore. It's just kind of like, oh, that team's good. This team's good. Let's go play ball.
Outside of Talon Green, out of the newcomers that have come in, who do you expect to make the biggest impact, whether it's Anthony Switzer, Larry Worth, Quindon Jackson, Danico Slaughter? Who do you see just stepping into a role that, whether it's leadership or just a monster on the field?
I mean, I'm going to go with the basic answer here. I wish I had some off the cuff, like, oh yeah, this guy that, Quindon Jackson, dude, he's going to be a monster. I think he's going to be Arkansas's top back, and I think they're going to rotate. So it's not like it's going to be him just 28, 30 carries a game. But I do think when the game's on the line, you're going to see that guy in the lineup. He's another one where you look at his career at Utah, and it's good on paper, but I feel like every time I look closer at it, I'm more impressed. Where I'm like, oh, he started his career as a quarterback and kind of made the switch in his redshirt sophomore year. And I think he had like 9 touchdowns that year. And then the next year he had more yardage, but less touchdowns. And it seemed like the team was a little bit worse. But it's like you kind of look at it and you're like, oh, this guy really has been a really highly productive player for an actually good Utah program that's been winning a lot of games. I think he's super motivated. He's in the right situation. He's so well-rounded too. I mean, it's just, he's a massive guy. Not going to be one of those like breakaway speed guys. He's not going to have a bunch of Rakeem Boyd like 80-yard runs, but I just feel like he's going to be a dude that you can, like a bell cow that you can really count on. And I think in that running back room, like it's a good room where everyone's kind of all the same, but I feel like he stands out like in the same level. But I feel like he's going to separate as the year goes on, in my opinion.
And I think the most important player, because look, let's be real. If Jackson's going off, that means the O-line's blocking. The O-line's blocking, your run game's going. It's going to open up Talon Green to just be able to throw it because everybody look at the tight end core we got, the wide receiver room. I told Adam this a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't until I knew the names and you seen what's coming back. It wasn't until I really opened up NCAA 25 and got Arkansas and you just seen the dudes, the talent dudes. And I'm not talking about how they played in the game. I'm talking about when you're really looking at this lineup and you can really have a name instead of number 16.
Yeah.
You're like, this offense can be really something special. And if they can really, that's where my mind coming into the season is, if I was confident in this O-line, that automatically goes from 5-7 to 7-5 right there off the bat, off the rip. So that's where my optimism is kind of leaning. If that one key piece can come together and they block, you have the running back room, the wide receiver room, and the tight end room. Look, I'm not going to lie. This is not a sunshine pumper thing. That offensive line blocks, and this could be one of the top 3-4 offenses in the league if everything goes and falls according to plan. But again, we are at college football. We are in the SEC. That hardly ever happens of this according to plan thing.
Yeah, but no, I agree 1,000%. Where I think at the end of the year, if it's December and I just woke up out of a coma and you're going to tell me Arkansas's record, I can tell you how good the offensive line was. If you tell me Arkansas went 9-3, I'm thinking that scenario you just laid out where, hey, things came together. They were, one of the top 4 or 5 lines in the SEC. Talon Green was crazy and all these things happened. But if you're like, yeah, Arkansas went 4-8, I'm going to be like, well, I guess Kudus never really got over that back injury and the O-line was shuffling guys around. And by the end of the year, it was like Josh Street at right tackle and just, stuff hit the fan. But no, yeah, I think the offensive line is such an X factor. Because all those skill position guys, we kind of know what you're getting for the most part. I think Satania and Broden are just going to be more reliable than I think people realize. And so there's not that many X factors or variables outside of the offensive line on offense. We know Luke has. We know Jaquindon Jackson, Andrew Armstrong. You go on down the line. I think the defense and the O-line have a lot more where it's like, all right, let's see what we really got.
Looking at, and this may be me wishful thinking or overthinking, if you will, going back to Jaquindon Jackson being a former quarterback. Do you think that we'll see him throw it any?
I don't know. You were talking about the video game earlier, and I was thinking his throw power on the game is like 92, 93. It's I think it's higher than Malachi Singleton. You can go look this up. It's crazy. In the moment, I like kind of just didn't really think about it. But yeah, who knows if Kendall Briles were still the OC, they'd be dialing up halfback passes all over the place. They'd probably throw 4 a game.
But it'd be on the 1-yard line. So, you'd never really get to see his full potential throwing power.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I was so devastated when McFadden finally didn't complete a pass. And I think it was a pick. I think it's the first pass he didn't complete was intercepted in the title game. But I remember as a kid, just like that broke me. I was like, the fun's over. my dreams are not coming true. It's like, this is back to reality. I was like, I didn't realize it couldn't work. I was like, McFadden quarterback every time. Like it just would work every single play.
And speaking of reality, let's bring kind of the conversation down to earth a little bit and talk about this football program as a whole. Where this program's at with the addition of Texas OU, talks of a Saudi Arabian LIV type super league. I mean, we don't know the future of college football. I mean, how important is this season to make this work to where moving forward, I mean, you're talking about already being behind in other teams and recruiting and your expectations and just adding more powerhouses to your conference. I mean, again, 1 to 10, what would you say the importance of this season is on the trajectory of this program?
Well, so, it's tough to put a number on it because it can go one of 3 ways in my brain. Obviously, things go the worst case scenario. It's just a completely horrible team. We've seen a few of those over our days. And they have to fire Pittman midseason. They just are they're blowing it up and going a completely different direction entirely. Or you part ways with Pittman at the end of the year, and it's a pretty good year, but not really one that everyone was thrilled about. And you kind of get a new coach, but it's not a complete overhaul. It's kind of let's keep the boat together and just change the captain out and hope nobody notices. That would be like a Barry Odom route, or I know there's a lot of people who want the Bobby Petrino thing to happen, which I just don't think that's really happening. But or Pittman has an awesome year and you're continuing and just all steam ahead. So I think this year is going to determine, frankly, which one of those directions they'll go. I think they're all kind of equally likely. Like anyone who's telling you definitively, no, they're definitely firing Pittman no matter what after this year, they're lying. Anyone who's definitively no way they fire him, he's definitely going to be, they're lying too. We all just kind of have to wait and see which direction this thing is going before we really talk ourselves into whatever we're going to talk ourselves into. So, I mean, I still, the one thing that makes me feel confident that really this year isn't going to be the end all be all is I think in college football or college sports in general, you're no longer having to go through these long rebuilds. We used to view it in that term of when you hire a head coach, it's all right, year 1, he's got to just do what he's got to do. But year 2, he's starting to get his guys in there. Year 3, and it's that just really isn't the case anymore. You could have a brand new coach and have one of the best classes in the country. If you don't ask me, or don't believe me, just ask John Calipari. You can. Nowadays, the world moves pretty quickly, and so even if Arkansas were forced to just say, "Hey, we're blowing it up entirely. We're firing Yurachek. We're firing Pittman. We're starting from scratch," you get the right guy in here, and you're not that far away. Obviously, that would mean next year you're probably sucking, but I really feel like at the end of the day, we live in just a weird world where you can talk me into anything. I mean, Colorado football is simultaneously the most popular program in the country while also still being bad at football. I don't even know what to make of it. You know what I mean? If you polled the entire world though, who's more relevant, Arkansas, Colorado, people would be like, Colorado, no doubt. They'd probably say Colorado over a lot of programs that won a lot of more games than them. It's just a very bizarre world we live in where kids these days, I think they have a lot of recency bias. Whatever happened last year,
tell you that we live in a social media highlight reel where if they're so bad that they have to edit their own practices, but yet still, I mean, being for real, you see all these highlight films and these people, but you don't see where they went in college. All these high school guys. I mean, I brought this back up a couple years ago. The guy that was at Texas or at Georgetown, went to Texas Tech, and then he got to the G League because he could dunk.
Mac McClung.
Yeah.
He was a high school sensation.
Yeah.
He did very well at Georgetown. Any other era, he would have left. He'd have been a hero and a 4-year star at Georgetown. But that social media hype of those commitments and recommitments, that's where we're at. That you see a lot of that. I mean, look, we're looking at 8U people, 8-year-olds having highlight films.
Baby Gronk.
Where we're at. Yeah, baby Gronk.
Yeah, but I mean, it really is that way where it's even if Arkansas didn't win a game this year, if they just somehow got some ragtag group together that went 8-4 the following year, it's not like it would take that long to rebuild. I mean, think about after Sam Pittman's second year at Arkansas, they go 9-4. They had think of the transfer class they brought in. It's not like those guys were well, but 3 years ago y'all sucked. It's no, Jaden Hazel was just I want to go play with a good quarterback. KJ's good. I'm on board. That's how these guys view this stuff. And so, yeah, it's you can kind of talk me into anything. But I guess circling all the way back to what you actually asked me of 1 to 10, I still feel like there's still a lot of pressure. I mean, this is going to be one of the most pressure-packed, tense seasons, at least early on. I mean, we'll see. I mean, if they start 4-0, then maybe it relaxes a little bit. But those home crowds are going to be anxiety-filled, man. Like there's going to be a lot of eyeballs kind of wondering, should I just give up on this program entirely? Should I just what are we doing here? And so I think if Arkansas, if things go bad early, it could snowball quick. So I'll still say it's in the high, like 7-8. Like it's going to be a very pressure-packed season.
So we got a tease in the spring game, and you'll see where I'm going with this, of Talon Green in a black jersey. How ridiculous is it that I'm hoping that Arkansas pulls that out and actually wears an all-black uniform? Is that something that's ever been that you've heard talked about since Pittman's come in?
I haven't heard it talked about, but I also haven't been listening for that particular. I've given up hope on it. Like I liked the charcoals back in the day. That's how crazy I was. Now the year that they introduced the charcoal uniforms, they also did those stupid like razor, the razor bar, like where it faded, and I felt like that ruined it for charcoal because everyone just kind of was like, "Oh, the black unis sucked." I'm like, they weren't even the worst, like that wasn't the issue. And Arkansas's had it's been a mixed bag though. Across all the major sports, because in basketball they've had some awesome games, they've had some rough ones in the black. So it's like I don't think there's a superstition around it. It's been enough time. Let's bust them back out there. I'm with you. Let's do it for the Texas game. Blackout Texas.
If they want to be a night game, but with that being an 11 a.m. game though.
Oh, is that 11 a.m.?
Yeah, can't do.
You couldn't. If you asked me, I know that Oklahoma State's 11 a.m. I never know the time of the game until like maximum like 12 days before.
Yeah, that's got to be a nighttime, November-ish, October-ish game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to complain about,
that would be a good one.
If anybody wants to complain about jerseys, we could just give them the old Apex uniforms with Jefferson Pilot. Let's go all the way back where you can't even see how horrible it was because the screen kept on going.
Was so blurry.
Talk about 11 o'clock game with Jefferson Pilot.
Those ones where they had the Razorbacks that were like right here?
That's the Apex one.
Yeah. The JJ Metters, I feel that's tough.
When it comes to uniforms and uniform, like I'm one of those guys that when I'm watching a game, like I want the uniforms to complement each other. I don't want an ugly looking game. Like the years past, like when the NFL did their color rushes and you had, mustard versus ketchup on the field. I don't want to see that.
Those Thanksgiving
on the video game, you have to make sure you edit the opponent. I learned that the other day because I was Ohio State and I was like, I'm gonna go all gray here. My opponent was all white and it just looked. I was like, oh wait a minute, this looks way. I threw like 5 picks. I was like, all right, you got to edit the opponents too. But I'll tell you one uniform combination that I really liked, and they'll never do it again because they lost to Rutgers in it. Red tops, white pants, white helmets. I love Kobe Hamilton broke the SEC receiving record in that game. But they lost to Rutgers again. So it's like, they have not done it since, but it was so clean at the time. And I feel like they ruined it.
See, I got that white helmet right there behind me. And everybody says that's one of the worst helmets. If you see the helmet that Arkansas has ever put out there, but I think it's really clean. I think it's really nice.
They just don't like to play in it. They don't like to
bring
play
back the chrome red one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Well, I know that you've got other things. You've got about 29 minutes, before your next scheduled event. I called you out in first segment, but I can't do it much because I've got the same kind of different show, but same thing going on at 8 o'clock. But I really appreciate you coming on and joining us. Good luck to y'all in your new endeavor with Inside Arkansas. For those who are living under a rock, tell them where they could find you and what y'all got going on this year.
Yeah, man. My Twitter's hard to find. I'm like shadow banned on Twitter, but I think I'm Ellis Andrew _ there. But don't worry about that. Just follow us everywhere. Inside Arkansas. We're at Inside Arkansas on everything. We were selective with our domain. We picked the right one. And we do some written stuff on InsideArkansas.com. But our YouTube channel, I feel like is up there with anyone in the state, man, in terms of just the daily content. We have a daily show there, and I know there's a lot of people doing a lot of great stuff in our state, man, in our industry, I guess. But yeah, man, it's been a lot of fun, man. It's really fun to, as you guys know, just doing stuff with your boys, man. Nothing better than it.
Love it. Well, that will do it for this episode of the Hog Talk Podcast. We'll come back to you live on Thursday. Want to thank you to all of our sponsors, Sterling Soap, Bet On Live, Buzz Radio Network, and we'll catch you on Thursday.